Hi, everybody. I am so thrilled to be here with Monique Burton, who came to me a few months ago and came in for one-to-one coaching because we're really talking about the stuff that was happening in your life and what you really wanted to be different, Monique. And before I get in, I just have to say she's like just a super badass, amazing person in her life, mother of two awesome girls, and then also has just an incredible job as a doctor and just changing lives in the work that she does. So I just wanted you all to know that about Monique. And she's also a yogi and just such an athlete. And we have all these overlapping interests, and we could talk forever about all that stuff too. And we're here today to really connect and talk about what it is coaching did for you, Monique. So I'm curious if you could just share with everybody what exactly was the challenge and where you were when we got started a few months ago.
Yeah, I would say that the reason that I came to you is that I was feeling that I wanted to change, but I felt kind of stuck. And I was kept getting to like this point, and it was becoming a little bit more clear to me what directions I was wanting to go in. But I just couldn't get over like some hurdle that I wasn't really sure what it was, despite how hard I felt like I was trying on my own. And so I became aware of the opportunity to work with you. And I thought, like, okay, I need to do this so that I can really get over what I feel stuck about so that I can get to that place where I know I can be and I want to be.
And for you, is it really around clarity then? Like you saw the way, or well, I don't know, you tell me, is it around clarity?
Well, I think it evolved, and so I was having trouble with clarity, and I have a little sneak peek that I spent with you, and in the initial little kind of little, I don't know if I call it like a little teaser kind of course that we did, and I thought it started to put my mindset in motion, and I had actively been working on my own about how, like, what is it that I want to do, what is it that I want to bring into my life around my work and my balance, and so had really put that out there. And I felt like the connection that came from me landed at the right time, and I think maybe was because I put out there as like, I need something, and what I needed was someone to help me to find, yes, the clarity around what my next steps were and the actions to be able to get there, which came from the clarity.
Mhm. And so what would you say you got first? Like, what was like the first thing you saw in coming into coaching, even going back to that beginning stage?
I think the first part of it was making the commitment to do it. And
Mhm.
so I am a mom and I love my children and they are my life. And I spend a lot of time focusing around what they need for their school, for their activities, and for me as a mom to try to support them to be successful. And I think I often put my personal needs and those goals aside. I obviously have to do a lot with my work. And so I always think of those things. So I kept kind of saying, eventually I'll get to that. Eventually I'll get to that. And I committed to coaching. And I think that that was really actually the first step for me is choosing to choose myself and choosing to invest in myself to be able to do what I knew inside I wanted to do to be able to make progress in the way that I wanted to. And I also know that making that step is still good for my girls because they're seeing me make a choice to to get to where I want to be by committing to myself as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure what you're saying, Monique, is resonating with lots of parents out there, and then just anyone in general, right? Where you're like, everyone is coming ahead of you, and you're like, I'm getting lost in the shuffle, right? Like, work
Yeah.
is ahead of my job, like my kids are ahead of me, all these other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you able to see then? Like what results were you able to get then from being in the coaching work? Like in terms of whatever, like that next step or next stage, or just really was it around commitment to self and like actually putting that into action?
Well, so I think some of it was commitment to self because that actually put me into action, right? So if I committed to myself, then even if sometimes I felt like a little bit of resistance, then I was able to come around to be able to say, like, okay, well, I have committed to myself. This is something that I'm going to do on a weekly basis, but not really. It was actually every day. That was actually the commitment. One of the big commitments to self is like this isn't just checking in once a week. This is like actionable changes every day. And that I think it was a big part of that initial shift. But then I think it was really like digging deeper into like these kind of, I want to call them like, I call them like fluffy ideas. Like, I want to feel this way. I want to do this. I want to do something around these things that I feel really interesting. And really kind of like bringing that together to a place where I can say, oh, okay, this is how I make that stuff to make this shift so that I can move in a direction that I really want to, as opposed to having always be like, someday I'd like to do these different things. Was taking the steps to really understand, well, for one, what my barriers were for myself and why I wasn't able to make those steps, but then also like how I do make those steps to move forward.
Yeah, and to be like sort of concrete for people to get that. Like, I mean, it's almost like, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes for myself today, and then I can get clear so that I can ask for the job I want. Like that
Yes.
kind of a transition, right? Because you transitioned a bit in terms of where you wanted to be with job work,
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
right?
I think that it really is that. And again, that's kind of that fluffy place. It's like where like I have a general sense of it, but I think it was able to really to understand, well, for one, to really understand the why for me, but then also to be able to understand like, okay, like, oh, then that means this. I think a lot of things that another one of the big things was trust.
Mm,
Because I think some of it, there are times when I felt like I feel this energy and I feel this direction that I'm going and I get it and I see things starting to fall into place, and like trusting that like there may be chaos before there's clarity, but that chaos was part of the process, and understanding and learning from the chaos within there was really, I think, helpful for me also.
And I would say too, even like reflecting back on where you were a couple of months ago, what I saw the big change in you was trusting yourself because you have a big job, you have a lot going on at work, but not only trusting what you're saying or doing and decisions you're making at work, but not actually spinning out on them afterward and not questioning
Mhm.
if that was the right thing or the PTA or whatever else it is that's going on in life, but really being confident in what you're doing and knowing that you made the right call at the time.
Definitely. I think that's definitely true. I can spend a lot of time spinning and thinking, and was this right? But like feeling, for one, like approaching every situation from a different perspective of more confidence, but then also not having to have a lot of, well, I think reflecting is okay, but not a lot of like the circle kind of thing where my mind is spinning. So I think for sure that definitely landed with me. I also like what also really resonated with me is what I can hold on to and grow from, and what I can let go.
Mhm.
That was a big thing that for me, like the me part and the other part, I think was really significant because I take on a lot of feelings from people that are really important to me, like certainly from my kids, my family, but I also take on a lot of feelings from everybody and bring those into myself in a way that was more destructive than it was helpful.
Mm.
And to really make that distinction of like what part is me and what part is somebody else is very helpful and powerful for me, because it allows me to actually be able to move forward and not to like go down somebody else's pathway that I didn't really need to go down. And not that I'm abandoning people, but I'm learning like what part is part for me and what part is part for them. And then it actually, I think overall is more successful in helping all around.
Right. I mean, boundaries, right? Like
Boundaries.
really good, clear boundaries,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
very big. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's so awesome. Well, what were you surprised by most in coaching and what you saw for yourself?
Well, I guess I'm not sure that I would say that it was surprising to me, but it was, well, it was maybe a little surprising. Is just to see that things actually were moving forward in the way that they did. I
Mhm.
mean, that's why I did it, of course, is that that's what I was hoping for. But little things would start to happen. And I knew it was because of the work that I was doing and the way that I was seeing things and the interactions, and I would say the energy that I was putting out there or receiving. But it was amazing to see things just start to fall into place. And I still see that happening. I think I shared with you last week. It happened like right after we got off of our meeting. But it's that's been amazing to see. And I guess
Could
I
you
don't
give an
want to.
example like that you're willing to share? What's an example?
Oh, well, so I really am interested in work around equitable access to physical activity. And that's been one of my big like goals of how do I bring that into my world of work, and how do I step more into that work. And that became very clear to me. And we talked a lot about like working that way. And like literally like right after we got off our meeting last week, I received a call the woman who started the King County Play Equity Coalition, and she told me that she had nominated me to be on the leadership team, which is like, I mean, an honor, because that's like the world that I want to work in, and certainly a goal. But it was, I like was so struck because I was just talking about like how important that was to me, and that happened. I also was
I have to give you party sticks for that because that's
thank
exciting.
you. That was,
Yay.
it was really amazing. And the week
Yeah.
before actually was approved by the board for our Sports Medicine Society to be the chair of our subcommittee on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is also really important to me, and like developing our pipeline into medicine, but just all the work around equity and diversity and inclusion. And both those things happened like a week apart. So it was pretty remarkable.
Well, and really, when you came in, actually, the work we had talked about that, like you had been wanting to shift your job to have more of that focus anyway. And then all of these things really are happening in your life, which is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
so su- surprising maybe like when I think of it from a before coaching perspective, but I totally get it, like having had done it. And I think the accepting and the receiving and observing is a big part of it as well for me.
Yeah, that's so awesome, Monique. What amazing results, right? Just to be like, oh, I got to have all the things I really wanted. And it
Yeah,
came from being clear and like really staying steady and focused on the work that you were doing, which is so awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then what can you just share with people around what it's like to work with me? Because, especially with the 4 month coaching, I'm always like, we're going to hang out a lot, So what is
Mhm.
it like to hang out with me, right, on a weekly basis and to do the work that we were doing together?
Well, obviously, for me, it was really wonderful. I knew you before
Mhm.
in one capacity, and have always respected you as a yoga instructor, but then also in just like how motivated and inspirational you are in the work that you do around writing, around movement, because movement's a really important part of my world as well. But I think that what was really wonderful to me is that it felt easy. And so I like, that's kind of a funny thing to say, but like it felt easy to be able to talk, to be able to have conversation, to be able to share really personal things about myself and my goals, and to feel supported. So it felt like a safe space for me. It felt like a supportive space, and it felt like an actively, energetically exchanging kind of space, if that makes sense. And so I that was really important to me, because I think it can be uncomfortable and looking in, of like, well, what's going to happen here? Is this like therapy? Is it like I'm going to have to dig into my goals? Like what are we going to go through? And it actually just felt natural and easy. And I think more than I would have even known, it helped to create just all the clarity around what I wanted to do. And I think that your your voice and the way that you interact allowed enough space for me to be able to think on my own, but support my ideas in a way that maybe I hadn't thought about, which I think it was really helpful as well. Because sometimes I think I'm like searching, and you're able to capture something that actually I said, but I didn't realize I had said it, or just like a little bit of like twisting with that to be able to say, this is what I'm hearing. And I was like, yes. And so that was, I think, a really special part of it for me. And then also I've really enjoyed like the work around energy, because I think for me, I felt those things a lot. And I felt like there was the ability to have that the guidance of the energy that I was holding, to be able to understand, like somebody who was like reading it and able to understand and be able to help me to move to the place that I wanted to, and get to the places within myself to be able to really find what I needed to think about or release or be able to move forward.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, I know the energy part is always like the fun secret of coaching. Like I talk about it, but then when you get into it, it's actually one of the most powerful parts of it is like that
Yeah,
shift, right? Like learning
yeah,
learning how to shift quickly out of your stress and your anxiety or things that are not working for you to getting to that space, like you said, where you're like, oh, I'm clear. I know what to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would also say that like even though we were meeting once a week, I felt you, like you're like, like energetically I felt you other times. Like, so when we had worked on something and something would come up the week, I'm like, like, there's Nicole, there she is, like, and
Talking to me.
I could feel and hear that support. And I mean, I think that was real. Like, I think that you hold the space for people so deeply that you are there outside of like our sessions. You are there because you've given us that commitment on an energetical level as well.
Well, I love hearing that. I've actually never heard that before, Monique, and it hasn't been expressed that way. So thank you. Like that's just, I don't know. I feel really grateful because I do feel that way. Like when I'm with people, especially like in a one-to-one, like this kind of deep committed coaching,
Yeah.
I do think about you guys and care about you guys and hold that everything we're doing in our sessions is lasting through the week and carrying us to the next. And I'm just really excited for you, like how clear you are and what you've been able to do in the last 4 months is really powerful. And I always love reflecting on where you were at the beginning and where you are now, because I think it's just such a cool journey and trajectory. And so it's been super incredible. And I'm super honored that you said yes to doing this work and that you committed to yourself. And yeah, thank you so much. It's just been so wonderful.
Well, I thank you because it's changed my life. And so that's a really big deal to me. And I would say even just making the commitment that 4 or so months ago, that was like, I appreciate the space that you held for me to be able to like go through my process of making that commitment. And I'm so glad that I did, because I feel like now I have this pathway that I was looking for, and I'm able to move forward into that and to carry everything that I've learned, and I'm not going to stop either. So that's also a really exciting thing to me, is that like I have this new clarity, and I feel like you support the space for people to be able to also do the work on their own. You know what I mean? So it's the belief and support that you have in me also was so significant to be able to move in the direction that I did.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Meg. I love what you shared. And I know for us, this is hardly goodbye. It's just a little comma
Yeah.
at the end, and we've got lots more to go. So, anyways, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing so openly with everyone.
Thank you.